ready. Dude, wonderful. They can hear me now. Cool. And I just want to make sure that we're recording because I likely do that on my Zoom sessions sometimes. I'll sit there and get all passionate about something, and then somebody's like, "Are you recording?" It's like, "Oh shoot." So, anyways, what's up? Welcome to Stagehand 101, the workshop. My name is Kenny Barnwell. I'll introduce myself here in a second, but I just want to thank you for letting me come and speak with you guys here at the Pine Isles Technical College show production program. I have the students here in the class. They've set up the production with their instructor, Jeff Wilson, the one and only. So I really appreciate you guys allowing me to come share with you in your class. I know that you guys have full up schedules with your work and learning the paths that you're interested in production, which is really awesome, right? Shows are really, really cool. But there's one key role to every show, which is the stagehand, which is the person that is there to support the production at the labor level. It's the person that's there to help the technicians and the engineers and the designers and the crew leads really achieve the actual work that needs to be done. And I wrote a book, Stagehand 101, which is a comprehensive guide on how to show up as a stagehand the best way so you can become in demand. There are a lot of people that are gifted the opportunity to be stagehands. And I say it like that, gifted the opportunity, because it is a gift. And it, for me, was life-changing in my career to become a stagehand. Quite literally was the spark that fueled a 20-plus year career getting to work with some of the top music artists in the world. And most stagehands, they don't realize the actual power that they have, the potential that they have to develop their ground level experience into something monumental. It is the door. And it's one that is wide open to everyone to walk through, which is pretty cool. And unfortunately, what I've noticed with stagehands all across the world, for this matter, is that many stagehands are really just missing the mark. They're really just not showing up with any sort of passion or really an understanding of their role in the work. And the reason why it matters so much is because it's so easy for a stagehand to look at themselves as just a laborer, just a helper. But what I know about stagehands is that they're one of the most important roles. They're a role that doesn't have a lot of decision-making capacity, but they're the glue. Without stagehands, we wouldn't be able to do shows. And in fact, during the pandemic comeback, after the pandemic and tours getting on the road, there's a lot of shows that have been canceled. Full-on huge shows that have been canceled because stagehands don't show up to calls, can't find enough stagehands in this time period. And because stagehands are so important, they'll literally have to cancel a multi-million-dollar show because there's not enough help. There's not enough stagehands. And so that's why I wrote the book, Stagehand 101, is to help people get really connected with why they're a stagehand, how to think about being a stagehand on the day-to-day, and the actual role that you have. Now, in the book, I do share some of the technical aspects, but very little because tech changes. When I started as a stagehand 20 years ago now, there are a lot of technology that is not even relevant anymore in the current events, and so tech changes. But there's one thing that never changes, and that's the evergreen ideas and philosophies that I share in this book. You can take this book and apply it immediately, and you'll notice a rapid change in the response that you get from your fellow stagehands, the response from yourself, and of course, your employers. Because the idea is to be able to be in demand. You want to be able to get experience as a stagehand. wouldn't you say? And the more experience that you have, the more developed you become. The more developed you become, the more opportunities present themselves. And the more opportunities that present themselves, you have more options in your life to create a really unique, cool experience. Now, I know that's a very esoteric kind of spiritual way to look at stagehand work, but that's the way I see it. You know, I don't look at just somebody pushing cases and loading trucks, you know, getting told what to do and when to eat and getting a free t-shirt. You know, certainly you get all of that stuff. But I look at stagehand as an opportunity, you know, as an opportunity to develop, as the proving ground, you know, as paid training. And if you look at it like I do, as paid training, you want to be able to show up and get the most out of the work. You know, you want to be able to get the most out of the training. And how you do that is to get on the gigs. How you do that is become more capable and being offered those opportunities as a stagehand, because there's a lot of them, even within a stagehand. If you can look past the paycheck, you can look past the breaks and the free t-shirt, you will see a world of opportunities right in front of you. And that's what we're going to talk about today. Welcome to freaking Stagehand 101. How about it? Yes. Okay, cool. Okay. Who the heck is Kenny Barnwell? I promise I will be brief. My name is Kenny Barnwell. I'm the author of Stagehand 101, as well as Backstage Pass, my first book, which is a book about how to get on tour. But the first step of touring is Stagehand 101, so here we go. I am a 20-plus year music business, concert event business veteran. I started as a stagehand in Atlanta, Georgia in 2002, at the end of 2002. I, early on in my career, had the opportunity to work all areas of production as a local crew technician. And I found that I really had an affinity and love for the music. I played music, so I naturally drifted towards backline. Backline is all the music instruments, if you're not familiar. That's the department that deals with all the music instruments. So I had an opportunity to go from local crew to backline, and then now, fast forward all these years, I've created a career as a backline tech, stage manager, production manager, and tour manager for artists like Trace Atkins, Travis Tritt, Clint Black, The Fray. I worked with Ariana Grande, Justin Bieber, Bon Jovi, a bunch of artists I currently work with while we're filming this, the Jonas Brothers, and many more. And so I'm coming at this from a place of experience that I want to share with you. I also, by the way, we have here watching live members of my community called Crew Coach. I am also a coach, a career development coach specifically for touring crew. And so they're here watching live because, hey, you know, this is another key, another piece in the career development puzzle, because that's what I look at stagehand work as a career, you know. Speaking of which, I meant to show this while I was going through all of that. There is me doing a variety of the things that I just talked about. Creeping on Ariana Grande up there. All right. If you don't know, also, we have a lot of education, a lot of free resources on our Instagram at Backstage Crew Careers. Follow this, because what I know about knowledge and education is that it is only stored potential. It is only stored potential until it's put into action, right? That's where the power lies. And so I don't withhold anything. It's why I'm a coach. You know, I realize that you know, sometimes you might know better and don't do better. And so I share everything on that Instagram right there. If you're interested in career building and stuff like that, all the tips, tactics, they're on there. So give it a follow. So what the heck is a stagehand? Here in the first part of the book, and I'm going to read it, I pulled Merriam-Webster's dictionary's definition of a stagehand. What they said is it's a stage worker that handles scenery, properties, and lights. Is that what you do as a stagehand? Scenery, property, and lights? That sums it up, right? Or Wikipedia says a stagehand is a person who works backstage or behind the scenes in theaters, film, television, or location performances. Their work includes setting up the scenery, lights, sound, props, rigging, and special effects for a production. That's definitely a closer definition for sure. You know, you can kind of clearly see that there's not a ton of information about stagehand work. If you look it up, you'll find a lot of stuff about the unions, and you'll find a lot of stuff about theater work. But the reality is the majority of stagehands across the world are doing other types of events than theaters. They're doing concerts and festivals, and they're working on huge trade shows and corporate events. Like, stagehand work is vast, and the internet doesn't offer a whole lot of information about stagehands. It's funny, I look at the history of stagehands, and I think about like the Colosseum days, where like there was stagehands bringing out the lions and the gladiators and stuff. It's a crude way to look at it, but it's the case, right? Like the history of event helpers, people that were actually there to support events have been forever. I mean, it feels like it's just a staple. There's always a need for stagehands all across the world and throughout history. And so this guide that I wrote, it's going to kind of expose this as a career. So if you're sitting here in this class, obviously you're wanting to be in event production, and I've mentioned before that stagehand is the best way to develop a career into doing this. You get to work all different types of events and get all different types of wide range of experience as a stagehand. And I really just encourage you guys, if you haven't done stagehand work at all, then I really want to encourage you to find stagehand work locally. And I wasn't going to talk about this in this workshop, but I just want to really offer you just a quick, actionable, high-level tip that's going to help you find some local crew stagehand work in your area today, okay? Let me set this book down. This is going to be cool. So here's how you do it so you can actually have an opportunity, because sometimes awareness is everything, okay? Stagehand work is no experience necessary. You don't need any connections. You just need to know what I'm about to share with you now, that anyone can become a stagehand, all right? What you're going to want to do is Google, in your case, Clearwater, St. Pete, or Tampa, stagehands, event production, local crew. You're going to Google that, all right? And what's going to come up is you're going to find these companies that are listed. There's 247, I think, 24/7. Is that the name of one of the local crew hands? Yeah, Rhino. Like you're going to Google them yourself, but do this in any city that you're watching from. Wherever you're watching from, put in your city, put in stagehands, local crew, and event production. You will see links to these websites, okay? Click into these companies. Most of the time, right at the top, especially in this climate where they're really looking for hands, they're really looking for workers, they'll have an app apply here, but otherwise scroll to the bottom of the web page and they will tell you exactly how to reach out to them. And the cool thing about stagehand work is it's a 1099 freelance labor type of work. So you can say yes to the ones that you can do and say no to the ones that you can't do. You won't lose your position or your work. It's an ability to be flexible to get the experience that you need now to continue building your career. So hopefully that was some helpful, actionable items so you can get started working as a stagehand and really take use of this information. All right, so as a stagehand, you're going to really want to understand when you're doing these gigs where you're at in the chain of command. Where is a stagehand land in the bigger picture of things, okay? So I'm going to kind of breeze by a lot of these pretty quickly, but a tour manager is somebody that manages the whole tour, the payroll, they book hotels, buses, that type of thing. A production manager will manage the entire production. The production manager will literally hire the designers and rent all of the gear for the tours and rent the trucks and lay out the production and physically on site actually manage the crew, right? It's a big responsibility. The stage manager is somebody that does just that. They manage the stage, but on a lot of these shows that you're going to work with stage managers, you're going to find that these stage managers are also managing loading docks. They're managing the trucks backing in and out. They're doing a lot more than just managing the stage. They're pushing the schedule along, and the stage manager is the key contact for a stagehand. The stage manager is the key contact on show sites for stagehands, because the stage manager will connect with the crew chief and who then directs the stagehands, okay? So remember that. Stage manager is that key person on the job sites. Production assistants are there to assist the kind of backstage of the production. They work with the production managers and tour managers to make sure the artists and dressing rooms and things like that have what they need. Tour accountants, you can pretty much figure that one out. Yes, when tours are big enough, we actually bring accountants on the road. When I worked with Justin Bieber and Ariana Grande, and even with Jonas Brothers, we have tour accountants. You know, it's a huge business, very, very large business. The merch manager does merchandising. They take care of all of the inventory, ordering new product, thinking about retail in such a way that it's design of t-shirts, things like that. Wardrobe assistants, obviously know what that's about. It's helping with the artist wardrobes backstage. Caterers and cooks, we carry them on the road oftentimes. Sometimes on tours, these cooks and caterers travel with us. And as a stagehand, you will oftentimes get to eat the food. Okay, so just something to consider, but sometimes they're with the tours. You know, the reason why all of these positions matter to a stagehand is the more you understand where you're at and where your role is in the bigger ecosystem as a stagehand, the better you can communicate with these different roles and just really understand that you might pass by some of these top people in the hallways. Actually, you're going to. Okay, the bus and truck drivers. Obviously, the bus drivers drive the personnel and the crew around. Truck drivers, very integral positions that stagehands will work hand in hand with, by the way, is the truck drivers. Oftentimes, the truck drivers themselves will be the ones that call the packs, that receive the cases and work with the stagehands to put the stuff back in the truck and take the stuff out of the truck. Truck drivers are very integral to tours. The front of house engineer and the monitor engineer, these are the two audio team positions that you guys obviously know about here in this production class. But if you're watching this and you don't know about this, the front of house audio engineer takes care of the sound that the audience hears, and the monitor engineer takes care of the sound that the performers and the artists and the musicians hear on stage. The lighting designer and the lighting tech, these are the lighting team positions, and there are more positions in these different roles. Sometimes it just depends. Sometimes you might have 3, 4, 5, 6 different lighting or audio team members or video team members and so on. So the lighting tech will support the lighting designer's vision and production and will run stagehands. You know, all of these roles you will work hand in hand with as a hand. Pardon me one second. We're going to have to cut this out. This dang ear, it keeps falling. I know it. I'm supposed to just smush it, he says. It ain't smushing. I got some big ears, too. I'm surprised this thing ain't just hooked. I don't know, man. All right, it just feels weird. I guess I'm just not used to it. Okay, pardon me. So the video director and the video engineer, these are positions that you obviously kind of like what Jeff's doing over here now. These are video positions, and they will take care of the big video walls and the screens. They will also direct the show. The backline techs are the ones that work with the instruments directly. The guitar techs, drum techs, keyboard techs. These are the people that work directly with the artists and the musicians working with their instruments. The set carps. The set carps are working with the big risers and the decks, the stages. They might build the elevators, the lifts, the catapults, right? The set carts get to do all that. The pyrotechnics obviously are the pyro and the blast and stuff. But as a stagehand, you will get a chance to work even with the pyro. Sometimes a stagehand, they'll have a pyro hand go in and help pack confetti or pack blast, right? How cool would that be to get to go in the back secure room and pack some blast as a stagehand? You'll get an opportunity to do that and work hand in hand with the pyrotech. And guess what? If you ever wanted to be a pyrotech, you're sitting next to the guy or girl that could help you, right? Pretty cool, pretty powerful position to be as a stagehand. That's why this information is so valuable. The automation tech does just that. They fly people through the air on these gags, elevators and catapults and lifts and all kinds of automated craziness that goes on shows. And there's a lot more specialty positions for touring. We've got drone pilots and all kinds of stuff. But as a stagehand, you will have the opportunity to help and work with every single one of these positions. And allow me to point out once again from a career perspective, the power of proximity. These people are doing what you want to do for your career, and they're doing it at the top. And you have the opportunity to be close to them, to get to, be an example around these people, to potentially exchange information and connect with them. That's the power of being a stagehand. They're watching. They're watching. Here are the local positions. You've got the promoter rep, which is the actual person that set up the show. It's the actual person that actually brought the artist in and paid for everything. They're on site. Venue production managers, somebody's in charge, somebody's receiving the tour. They might be in charge of the AC in the building and stuff like that, but they're there. Your runners and PAs. Runners are a position that is a local crew position, much like a stagehand, but what they do is they use their personal vehicles, or they'll use a provided vehicle to pick artists up from the hotels and drop them off, to run to the grocery store, to bring stuff back for the dressing rooms. This is a local crew position that doesn't require any experience, that also gets to work with some of these top people. So that is a very interesting position as well, the runner. Ushers, they obviously work at venues to help people get seated. Same thing with security. Security is another touring position I didn't even put on there, but we often, these days especially, will have entourages of security personnel. But locally, there's security stewards, which is the crew chief, which is like the lead of the stagehands. That's the one that works with the stage manager to delegate all the things. They're called the steward or the crew chief. And then finally, you have the stagehand, the glue. You have the workers, the laborers, the people that are specialty hired to come and help the tours and the leads and the corporate techs and the engineers to successfully put on their shows. And you can see how important and integral they are, but I just wanted to really show you the ecosystem of personnel that it takes to put on a single show. With Justin Bieber, we had 175 people on our tour between everybody. That's a lot of people for one show, to make one 2.5, 3-hour show happen, But we couldn't do that, even with the tour personnel, without the 100 stagehands that we would have at every venue, So that's what I'm trying to tell you, is most of the time we have more stagehands to help than tour personnel, okay? So hopefully that was helpful. Has this been good so far? This has been cool? All right. So some of the types of events that you'll get to work in theaters, you'll get to work in arenas, stadiums, hotel ballrooms, conventions and trade shows, fashion shows. I've done DVD shoots and filming spots, and of course the circus. Back when Ringling was around, I actually was literally a stagehand with Ringling, getting to help set up the circus. So, sorry guys, this thing is not sitting right, Jeff. So that's pretty cool. Hey, listen, as far as the types of events that you get to do, look how much experience that you get to have. Because a lot of people don't look at this as a stagehand. This is experience you're building. You as a stagehand, in a single year, could work every type of event, every type of flavor, every type of pace. Working in a hotel ballroom, for instance, where you're doing corporate stuff as a stagehand, it's very slow. It's the same gear. It's audio and lights and screens and stuff, but it's very slow. The pace is slow. You might build everything as a stagehand, and the client comes in and says, hey, can you move everything over 6 inches? That's that type of work. Or you're a rock and roll stagehand, right? Where you're doing concerts and the stuff's coming out of the truck and you're making this huge show happen in hours, and then sound check, and then you do the show, and then you strike it, and you just load it all out that same night. You'll get all that experience, the finite detailed tech stuff, to where you can really pay attention. Sometimes as a stagehand, you'll get handed a lighting plot and said, hey, here's a lighting plot in this hotel ballroom. Here's all of our gear. You feel good about this? Sometimes you might get trusted with that type of responsibility, even as a stagehand. Those are really valuable learning moments. Valuable learning moments. People pay for that type of education, So this right here, the types of experiences that you get to do, is very, very valuable to understand. All right, so what you need to know about being a stagehand from the beginning is that it is a local call sheet. It's a local labor list. I'm so sorry, guys. This thing is Jeff, 1 second. This thing is just dangling and totally not.
It's not going anywhere.
All right. Okay. What you need to know about being a stagehand from the beginning, basically you got to understand your positioning, What what you want to do is you want to understand that as a stagehand, you're on a local call labor list. You know, when I first started in Atlanta, there was 200 people on this labor list, and I was at the bottom of it. Now, as a stagehand, you could also work for unions, and unions work off seniority and hierarchy, and so there's a lot of slow growth when it comes to unions. But in non-unions, it's you call up there, and it's sometimes first come, first serve. Some of it's relationships and credibility, but understand that it's a list. It's a list, and it only gives you back the opportunity as much as you go to call it and activate it. In other words, there are people waiting at these stagehand companies for your call to see if you are interested in doing a gig. And so you call up there to get a gig and say, hey, is there anything available this week or today? Sometimes things pop up quickly. You know, sometimes as a stagehand, you need to be readily available. You might get a call, what it's called. You might get on a call, and it might be tomorrow. And so as a stagehand, you want to be ready. Another important thing as a stagehand to know is in getting ready, you need to be prepared with the few things that a stagehand needs to be successful on the job, okay? If you do what I'm about to tell you to do, you are going to be ahead of about 90% of stagehands. 90% of stagehands show up disinterested, they don't care, they're not prepared, and they're just there for the shirt and the check and the free food, okay? So if you can show up wearing blacks, black clothing, you need to wear blacks, pants, shorts, shirt, be prepared in blacks. And the reason why that matters is because there's these positions which we'll get to later called show call positions, and they require you to be wearing black clothes. And if you don't have black clothes, you might not get considered. You know, if you just didn't come prepared, you might not even get considered to be on the show call. So come prepared. Not to mention it's a level of professionalism. It shows that you care, right? Another thing is most stagehands don't show up today with tools. A pair of gloves, mechanics gloves or something, have them on you, man. You're loading and unloading trucks. You're working with dirty cases, shards of metal, right? Have them on you. A crescent wrench, a C wrench we call it. If you don't know what that is, it's like a little adjustable wrench. You can get a little carabiner and hook it to your belt and hang it off your belt. Have a crescent wrench on you. Most stagehands these days don't come with a crescent wrench, you know, and the reason why is because there's a lot of bolts and nuts and a variety of things that need your crescent wrench. And most of the time, stagehands don't come with a crescent wrench. One's needed, and literally you might have one stagehand out of a whole group that has a crescent wrench, you know? And the other stagehands, they look at each other like, you know? Come with this crescent wrench. It's very simple, but 90% of stagehands are ill-prepared. And they don't realize that this gets noticed and seen, especially by tour people. And to be honest with you, we don't typically, as a tour person, remember that one single stagehand. We remember the city. That city of stagehands, they were frustrating. That city of stagehands came ill-prepared. And so not only are you representing you're representing the company, you're representing the city, that venue, you know. And so all you have to do is show up with your C-wrench. Show up wearing blacks, show up with your gloves, and another thing is show up with a blade, a knife. You're going to be cutting tape, and you're going to be cutting tie line, and you're going to be needing a blade. Oh, let's see it.
Or somebody.
Or somebody, yes. You might need a blade or somebody. This is a crescent wrench, if you don't know, just to show you guys. This is an adjustable C-wrench. I remember when they were like, okay, can you just bring your blade, your gloves, and your C-wrench? I'm like, cool. And we didn't have Google back when I started. I didn't know what a C-wrench was. But I come to find out it's a crescent wrench. One of these, it's like $8, $7, probably cheaper, right? Grab it, carabiner, hook it to you, some gloves, a little clip on a knife and a blade, and you are prepared, you know? Maybe boots, you know? Not all gigs require boots, but some stagehand companies require boots. You know, at least a tough work shoe. Make it black. Be consistent. There might be some gigs that you don't have to wear black. Just wear black. You know, you want to be considered. You want to come best prepared and best considered. All right? Sorry, guys. This mic thing is, it's like, am I Garth Brooks or something? Good Lord. Okay. How to get on the calls. Well, again, I mentioned it was a labor list. So what you do is if the company, you can do it two ways. A lot of stagehands, I'm going to tell you the ways that other stagehands are doing it negatively. So maybe that'll actually help you know the right way to do it. But a lot of stagehands just wait, right? They get on their call list and they just wait. They just, wait till they get called for the gigs. The thing is it's a relationship game. You know what I mean? You want to show them that you want to be there, that you care. You ain't just waiting. And so what you do is you call them. Call them and just say, hey, this is such and such. I just wanted to check in and see if anything's available, right? They might have a different process. They might have a group text system. They might have some stagehand companies might even post their opportunities to call or get gigs on Twitter. Who knows? Or on their Facebook page or something. But either way, there's a way to stay actively asking for the opportunities, and that's how you get on the calls. Aside from showing up and doing a great job to get on the next call, to get on the original call is you want to reach out. When I first started as a stagehand in Atlanta, I lived outside the city, and it was a 45-minute drive into the city to get to work as a stagehand. Now, it was so cool, the experience to get to work as a stagehand. At least I was like, man, this is going to be so cool. And I didn't know that it was a really busy time in Atlanta, but I was at the bottom of a really large stagehand list, And so they called me for my first gig, and my first gig was what's called a standby position. And as a standby, what it is a stagehand company, for the sake of insurance and protection, they have to book some extra people on the call, standbys, because a lot of stagehands are not responsible and don't show up. And so notoriously, they get somebody to get quickly replaced by a standby position. And my first opportunity was to work at the Georgia Dome, a venue that doesn't exist anymore, to work as a standby. And this was 2001. And I go, okay, cool. So I'm like, I don't know what that is. And they're explaining to me, like, look, you don't get paid. You got to come park, check in with the crew lead. And if someone doesn't show up, then you can get on the call and get paid. And I was like, okay, sounds simple enough. Count me in, go down, pay to park, walk down there, check in with the steward. And sure enough, everyone shows up, I was like, oh man, I was like, but one cool thing was the loading dock doors to the Georgia Dome was open. And I could see the production going on. Like it was this huge TD Jakes convention. And I was like, this is so freaking cool. And I could see the lights and the trucks and like the audio. And I was like, whoa. And I'm a teenager. I'm like, man, I'm going to get to do this? All good, like I'll be back, right? So next day, come back as a standby again. People show up. I don't get on the call. I do this all week. In fact, into the next week, I did this for 10 days straight. And I, at this point, was broke. I had to get to work. I was just like, I don't know if I'm going to do this music business thing anymore. I've been a standby for too long. Costing me money to go down to Atlanta. And so I had a friend of mine. He calls me. He said, hey, Kenny, do you want to do some construction work? It's secure. I'll pick you up tomorrow morning, get you to do some construction work. And I was like, man, you know what? Let's do it. Like this whole stagehand thing is a pipe dream, like it would be so cool, but like I can't afford to keep going down there. And so that night, I get a call from the stagehand company. Kenny, you want to come be a standby? And I was like, standby. And so I was like, I don't know if I could do it, And so I immediately called my friend back and said, listen, I need to go be a standby because if this happens, I could be a stagehand. I get to set up concerts and stuff, Like this is a big deal to me, And so I go down to Atlanta. I turn down the construction job, go down, pay to park, check in with the steward. I'm like the first there in the morning, And sure enough, I hear my name called. Kenny, he's so excited. He's like, you're on, And I was like, yes, finally. So I finally, after all of that perseverance, after being a standby for that many times, I ended up being a standby for 12 times was what the number was. And the reason why I know that is because the steward called, or the crew booker called me the next day and said, hey, Kenny, just want to let you know, because you've really proven yourself here, you're never going to be a standby again. And you're full-time with us. In fact, do you want to work Dixie Chicks tomorrow? And I was like, yes, But if I would have like allowed, you know, myself to give up and not get the opportunity to become a stagehand, you know, I wouldn't be talking to you guys here today, that's for sure. But being a stagehand was the thing that saved my life, you know? But sadly, too many stagehands are just there doing the gig, and they don't see the power in this. And that's why it's so important to understand how to get on the calls is about reaching out, putting yourself out there, being perseverant, saying yes to the standby gigs, saying yes to whatever they have, because that's going to get you on the calls, you know? Saying yes and helping them out with what they need you for. Important things to consider: show up with your tools and blacks. When you first get in, get checked in with your steward and get prepared to work. Like, finish your smokes, put your phone up, like, get ready to actually do the work, you know? Never use your cell phone at work. Don't do it. Too many stagehands. I've literally been on stage. I was doing a Sarah Bareilles tour a couple of years ago, and I'm standing on stage, setting up Sarah's piano in the middle of the stage, surrounded by stagehands. We're about to lift this huge, heavy grand piano, and I go, all right, you ready to tip? And I look around, and dude's on his phone. Oh, yeah. I'm like, dude, don't use your phone. Like, this is serious, right? He's laughing because he goes, yeah, he sees this all the time. This is simple stuff. Like, it's so sad that I would have to even point that out. I even had to put it in caps on my little slide here. It's so important. That's crazy because it's that important, you know? What if I didn't know the guy was on his phone and I go to tip the piano and Sarah's piano come crashing? People are doing this all the time. To add to that, that same guy literally was smoking his vape on stage, his weed vape on stage, blowing it. What, man? What? Like, I'm the problem, you know? That's the stagehands we're talking about. That's why people learn this stuff that I teach in my book and they go, well, this seems pretty obvious stuff. No, it ain't. You know, common sense is not always common practice. Okay? Don't wander off. Let somebody know. This happens all the time. You know, you might be in the middle of doing a gig and, you know, especially me as a backline tech where it's like there's some things that I need to do and I need my stagehand to wait for 5-10 minutes. Next thing you know, I turn around, oh, where's my person? They've taken off, you know? They never let me know. Happens all the time. And then I have to go find them, and then their steward has to come to them and be like, why didn't you say with it? And then next thing you know, it's like you become that person. You become known as that person. Just don't leave. If you got to go to the bathroom, but let your steward know and let the person you're assigned to know. It's that simple. Even if you're like hanging out on the loading dock, just walk over to the steward and just be like, hey man, I'm just going to, real quick, just let you know. It's simple. I know it seems obvious, but it goes a long way because most people don't. And then when they're coming out of the bathroom and the steward's been wandering the venue looking for them, they go, what? You know, it just, So don't wander off, let somebody know. Have a good attitude. You know, having a good attitude, it literally means showing up being happy and grateful and joyous and appreciative, you know, of getting to be there. That's what a good attitude means. And that trickles down. You know, I always like to say positivity loves company. You know, I'm an optimist, so positivity loves company. When you're that stagehand, you're going to attract that. Trust. Listen carefully and get clarity. You know, here's something with stagehands that is a big miss. And stagehands, I'll work with stagehands a lot. And I'll direct the stagehands and I'll say, hey, go ahead and roll this case up stage left and roll this cable out. And then when you do that, just plug this here. You got it? And just like, yeah. And then you can tell that they don't got it, you know? But the thing is all you have to do is, I'm sorry, 1 second. So you want me to, it's up stage left. And because if you just take the few extra bit to get the clarity, it's not an embarrassment for you as a stagehand. It's a sign of respect that you want to make sure that you're doing the right thing. It's not I'm dumb or I'd missed it. Like, don't be afraid to get clarity. It helps you. You need to do it. So if you missed it, say, I'm sorry, 1 second. So the sub-snake you said, it's the yellow one? Okay, cool, right? Get the clarity. It helps you. Don't be timid. This is a big one. You know, back to the Sarah Bareilles piano example. If you've ever set up a grand piano, it's on this big cart. It sits upright. It stands tall. You cannot be timid when you're moving that thing. You know, you like when I say timid, it's like grab it. You know, hold on to it. Grab the other end of that case. Jump in there. Don't be afraid to jump in that truck or grab that cable or help fix the cable wrap. Like, don't be timid when you're a stagehand, It doesn't mean to be some crazy aggressive person, but it does mean to just step up. If you see it, just step up. You don't have to worry about it like you're a hand. That's what you're there for. Work with urgency. Sincerely work with urgency. Keep up. Keep up. It's like, hey, can you go grab the tape? That's what you get from a lot of stagehands. What's cool is if you just stepped it up, then you'll stand out. It's crazy that I'm having to kind of lay it out in this basic way, but these are what's stopping most stagehands from getting on the next calls, for being enjoyable to work with, for being considered for next level opportunities. And influence is real. You'll see a groups of stagehands that are always together complaining about the truckload, complaining about the catering. They're going to complain about a little bit of working past. They're going to complain about having to push up the ramp or bring the stuff down the ramp, or they're going to complain about the cold, or they're going to complain about everything. They're there. These stagehands, they're on every call. All across the world, by the way. I've worked with French stagehands, Dutch stagehands, Australians. Everywhere, every bunch of stagehands has a group of stagehands that complain about doing it. Don't get caught up. It's easy, especially when you're new and you're on the gig, and those stagehands are just like, yeah, you deserve this, man. Yeah, you need this. I can't believe they're making us stay like this, and why aren't they breaking us for lunch? And then you're going to find yourself in that going, yeah, maybe I do deserve more. It's like, hey, you're a stagehand. Like, just do the gig. Like, it's all good. Do the gig, and you'll get more. But if you get complaining, if you're going to be a complainer and you're going to be influenced by it, you're going to get a lot of the things to complain about. You'll get them. Believe me, you want to complain? You'll get them. You'll get the things to complain about. You'll attract them. So be mindful of your influence as a stagehand. Be a fan and not fanatical. I made this mistake hard one time. The artist, you don't typically go and as a stagehand and go talk to the artist. You can be a fan. Sure, I've worked with some legends, but you can't be fanatical. One time I was doing the Tony Hawk Boom Boom Huck Jam. It was a tour back in the early 2000s. And I saw Tony Hawk in the hallway, and I was like, ooh, Tony Hawk. And I'm a stagehand, You got to know your role. You got to know your place. And this is where I kind of crossed that line, because most stagehands are just like, you'll tell people, like, hey, man, you can't be, fanatical. You can, appreciate the art and all that stuff, but you can't, gurm these people. You can't fan these people, You got to, you're a stagehand, so now you're, part of the thing. You're behind the curtain now, And so you can't, go and bug the artist and talk to the artist and all that stuff, and it's kind of part of it, And a lot of stagehands will tell you, well, I'm not starstruck, but there you go. You'll see these stagehands every single time going to these artists to try to be like, hey, can I get a selfie? Or I've seen stagehands. I saw a stagehand in a Tampa show, actually. I was out with Keith Urban, and the stagehand was like, Keith goes out on the B stage in the middle, and this stagehand, during sound checks, filming him because he's out there laying cables on the camera and stuff, and he's filming him like this. I'm going, that's what I'm talking about. Be a fan. You can appreciate Keith. He's awesome. But don't be fanatical. Know your role, I don't think he's back as a stagehand, that guy. Okay, typical concert show day schedule. This is cool. Your call time is the time that you're asked to show up, okay? I always say this, man, show up 30 minutes early. If your call time is 8 o'clock, show up at 7:30, Just make it a rule for yourself. Give yourself that buffer. It's not because, late's early and early's late or whatever that saying is. It's like, hey, I got respect for me. I got respect for you. And hey, what if something happens? At least I gave myself a buffer, right? So call time. Then you've got your load in. If you don't know what a load in is the time that the show comes out of the trucks into the venue and gets set up. So load in lasts for hours, okay? It's a long part of the day. Then lunch. Sometimes lunch is in between load ins. You'll have a sound check. A sound check is making sure the production is correct. Most of the time on a schedule, you won't see this on the schedule, but there's a thing called line check. It's something that the tech crew does that you as a stagehand might get to witness. But it is literally just like quick checking the lines, make sure everything works before a sound check. Because a sound check is like more accurate, you know. We even during sound checks, like just to give you a little inside scoop from tour people, is we actually ask the musicians to try to like step it up. We'll literally ask our players to play like they're in the show so we can really capture a real sound check. Because sometimes they'll just, you know. So things like that. Sound check is like an actual rehearsal. Dinner is obviously dinner. You as a stagehand, by the way, you'll get an opportunity to get fed. Especially if you get show calls and you get to stay, you'll get sometimes breakfast, lunch, and dinner on top of your pay, which is pretty cool. Show call is the time that you are supposed to show up if you have a show call position. I'm going to talk about some of those in a minute. Show call is literally if you have a position that serves the show as a stagehand, there's a handful of them that you could actually get to be a part of the show as a stagehand, which is pretty cool. That's what show call is. Show time, obviously we know what that is. And then loadout is the loadout, the strike. It's also called the strike, okay, when you're striking all the gear. These are the show call positions I was talking about. Spot op or spotlight operator. Man, when I first started as a stagehand, it was like old conventional ways. There was like old par cans and things like that. We didn't have a lot of intelligent, actually when I first started, we didn't have any intelligent lighting. And you used to have to climb up these ladders on top of the truss and flip upside down and like focus the lights. It's called the lighting focus. Or sometimes they would attach spotlights literally on top of the truss, and we would climb up there, get in a bucket seat, strap into a harness, and shoot a spotlight above the stage. And we would have the opportunity to do that. I've done that sometimes in a flame suit because there's pyro shooting up. You might do wrestling matches or something and get to be above the stage. Those positions now don't much exist anymore, the truss spots and the lighting focus positions, because now what it is it's called robo spots. Roby, I think it's Roby, right? They made a robo spot, which is brilliant. And so now spotlights are operated from a robot, a little LED screen and handlebars from the back, like you're above, and then the light you would have been in a seat was up the top. But that's an opportunity to get to actually be a part of the spotlight. You know, I was working David Bowie as a spotlight operator years ago, and he had this one part of his show that was all black, and then all of a sudden he pops out into the beam of light. Just David Bowie, completely black in a beam of light. And that light was me. But it was coming from a spotlight 300 feet away. And we were using these Gladiator, what are they, 3000s or something? Yeah. Gladiator 3000s or something. Huge spotlights. And there's a technique in spotlight operation called ghosting. And back then, it basically means like you open the frame a little bit so you can almost see the light in the dark. It's called ghosting, but it's not really on. So you can know that if you're in the right spot or not. And the LD for David Bowie was like, listen, stagehands, no ghosting. You better be on it. And I was like, oh my God. And he's like going from here to here to here. And I'm like, I hope my beam of light is on David right now. It better be on Bowie. And sure enough, you know, I'm on him, you know. Just stuff like that. Having the opportunity to really be a part of the show as a stagehand. You see what I'm saying? You see why I'm so passionate about this? I don't look at this as some job of pushing cases and getting a free t-shirt. I look at this as like, man, I'm getting to be a part of that, right? I have a lot of memories like that. I shot truss spot for wrestling and share and all kinds of really cool stuff as a stagehand before I got on tour. A deckhand is somebody that literally helps the risers and the opening acts move on and off the stage during the show. Sometimes they have like those big curtain drops, what's called kabukis. Stagehands will be there at the bottom to catch it and help run it off. Getting to be a part of the show, bringing props on and off, you know, the show, during the show, getting to be a part of the show in that capacity. Stagehands will get to do that as a deckhand. A cable page. A cable page is a stagehand position that wraps a cable. You know, this is why like the fundamentals are so important that you're learning here with Jeff, because there's a position that is called a cable page that you will literally stand behind the camera operator on a concert stage or a festival or something like that, and you will make sure that the cable is wrapped and unwrapped and secure so the camera operator is not tripping over himself. And it's a very important position. Like they couldn't even be a handheld camera operator without the cable page, which is a stagehand position. You see how important? And it's a fundamental skill, wrapping a cable over under, that has to be learned and done to achieve success as a cable page. But hey, as a stagehand, from his point of view, it's an extra $100 added to his paycheck to get to be a cable page, if you look at it like that. Camera operator, like I said, you have the opportunity to run a front of house camera, or sometimes, most of the time, not the handheld as a stagehand. Usually that's a tour person, but sometimes it'll be a tripod camera in the front of the stage, or what they call a front of house long lens camera. As a stagehand, you'll get to do it. I remember I was working Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young show. Some of you guys may have heard of them from old. And I was a stagehand getting to run camera on David Crosby all night. Like, it was cool, you know? That's a stagehand. My image was up on the big screen. You know, my shot was pretty cool. So some of those show call positions. Stage directions. This is fundamental stuff. If you don't know, by the way, everybody's getting a copy of Stagehand 101 by the end of this. A digital download. You, sir, thank you. Thank you for buying copies. Appreciate your support. But you can snap a photo of this. That'd be cool. This is basic stuff, guys. Learn this. Upstage, offstage, onstage, downstage. You know, just real quick, we'll run over it. This stuff is just good vernacular to know. Just kind of understand. How can you know where you're going if you don't know where the heck you are, right? If you don't have a map. This is a map. When we take stuff out of the truck as a stagehand, you might have the guy on the dock or the girl on the dock say, hey, send this out to downstage left. Hey, run this out front of house. Run this out house right. Run this out upstage center, right? Like those stage directions, they call it, are all based on this. So if you're standing on stage and you're looking at the audience, okay, that is the house. You guys are in the house. You guys are actually in the front of house position, looking at me, right? So if you're looking at the stage, house right, house left, right, from your position. If you're on stage, it's stage left, stage right, down stage, up stage. And here's a way that down and up stage was presented to me years ago. Is imagine like a church choir or something like that. In the olden days, in theaters, the stages were literally raked, meaning there's a slight incline. In fact, if you tour Europe today, hopefully some of you guys get to tour one day, you'll get to tour through these old theaters that are literally raked. They have a tow rail on the bottom of the stage that you have to hold your cases against, because the upstage is a literal upstage, which is pretty crazy. But that's what that's from, that kind of upstage, downstage, stage left, stage right. You need to know this stuff. I'll sometimes have a stagehand drop my power and say, hey, I need this on the downstage left of the drum riser. That's a pretty specific location. Where's downstage left of the drum riser, right? Learn this stuff. This is it. That's the map. It's pretty simple, but once when you learn it, man, it's like it's old hat. It's the vernacular that you need to know. The areas of the venue and production will be real brief with this stuff. Obviously the stage, loading docks, you know what that is. Front of house, like we talked about. Monitor world, which is most of the time on a stage left side. For whatever reason, monitors have historically been stage left. They can be right. It all depends, but most of the time, for whatever weird reason, it's always on the seemingly left. Guitar worlds can either be either side of the stage. They are the area that's the guitar technicians set up, and they have their work boxes and stuff. Obviously, you can kind of see that it's all about worlds and universes and stuff. Video world is where all of that video stuff would be set up. It's usually in a backstage hallway. Oftentimes, it's kind of like set up like a TV station, and they're in a backstage hallway. They don't have to be like direct view of the stage in most cases. Dimmer beach, okay? Dimmer beach, if you're not familiar with dimmers are the power distros to power all of the lighting and the video and the audio. Mainly in lighting and video, the dimmer beach would be on like an upstage right area or an upstage area of some sort, that all of the feeder cable and the power distros, they usually kind of want it on its own little area because it is magnetized, it is magnetic, it causes a lot of interference, there's a lot going on over there in dimmer beach, okay? So if you ever got asked to send something to dimmer beach, you know that it's where all of the power distros are. It's all where the big cables are coming out to power the lighting. The production offices are usually not far from the stage, with the dressing rooms in a back hallway somewhere. As a stagehand, you will be asked to push wardrobe cases in dressing rooms. You will be asked to help production take stuff in and out of production offices and stuff like that. You'll work hand in hand with these people. Merch booth or table is obviously usually in the crowd area. Sometimes in these trucks, when you're a stagehand, you might be asked to send all of the merch out to the merch area or the merch table. And then catering, most of you guys will be looking for that right away. You know what that's all about. Look for the signs. There's always signs in venues, by the way, that point arrows to most of these places. Here's the main areas of production and just kind of some of the day-to-day work, what it looks like. As an audio hand, you're going to be opening cases. You know, just remember things like righty-tighty, lefty-loosey, some of these basic, simple things, right? Like the way, most of you probably know how road cases work, but get familiar. It is insane to me sometimes that stagehands don't know simply how a road case works, but they let other things prevent them from learning it, like being timid. They're not, you know, they're being too timid to ask, you know. They're not taking, they're not really taking initiative. And a lot of people, guys, I know I say lefty-loosey, righty-tighty on here in opening cases. I'm only putting this stuff on here because people miss it as stagehands. Professional stagehands miss it. You know, he's a dude shaking his head because he knows. Running XLR cables and subsnakes is something that you'll do. I'm going to use this vernacular in this workshop today because I want you to just hear it. If you've never heard these words before, I want you to hear it, because as a stagehand, and especially going back to reference this workshop in the book, you're going to be using this terminology a lot, because this is what the type of work that you're going to be doing. So if you're ever assigned with an audio tech, you're going to be running XLR cables, which are the mic cables. You're going to be putting out subsnake boxes, which are like the boxes that have all the mic inputs, right? I am not going to get too far in the technical stuff because this stuff changes. I mean, they're working on wireless snakes right now. Like, okay, I'm not going to teach you guys too much because the tech's going to change, but I will say this stuff is fundamental. You're going to be running out mic cables, subsnakes. You're going to be running the snake. As a stagehand, you might be running the snake. It's a huge cable. The snake cable could be a 300-foot long cable. And when they say running the snake, you're running it from monitor world all the way around to front of house. As a stagehand, you're going to be wrapping a cable and pushing a case. It sounds simple, but even stagehands fumble with the cable, you know, are too timid to push the case. And so these are some of the things that you'll be doing. Tipping or tipping the console. Tip the console or tipping the console on an easy tilt. Tipping the console literally means tipping up these big desks. If an audio guy or girl comes to you and says, hey, we're going to tip the console, stagehands, come on, follow me. By the way, work with urgency. It's quick. The work moves quick. Hey, stagehands, we're going to tip the console. Let's do this. 4 hands on it. Okay, grab it. Take the case off. All right, let's tip it. This is how fast this work moves, you know? And so if you can just kind of understand the vernacular, tipping a console, you now know that if you're ever working as a stagehand and an audio guy says tip the console, you guys are going to go to monitor world or the front of the house to tip the desk. Place the wedges, right? Placing monitor wedges on stage. Building the mic stands. You know, be sure to listen carefully. I added this in here on this list